Tayo Rockson is a behavioral scientist, an author, a speaker, and professor specializing in cultural competency, identity, and workplace dynamics. He has a background in behavioral science and global strategy. And basically, he helps individuals and organizations navigate the complexities of leadership, communication, and culture. We are so lucky to have Tayo today on the podcast. Tayo, thank you. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're so excited to have you. We've looked forward to this for a long time. Tell us how your personal journey as a global citizen is really shaping your understanding and your appreciation of belonging. The subject is belonging today.
Yeah. Well, my personal journey starts with my father's job, really. My pops was a diplomat, and I'm from Nigeria. And so because of his job, I ended up growing up in 5 countries and 4 continents by the time I was 17. And so the concept of belonging was something I felt I needed to do because I wanted to survive, I wanted to fit in, I wanted to understand my environments. And a lot of that has helped shape my worldview because it definitely helped shape the way I see the world. Initially, I grew up in a collectivist country where everybody, sort of knows your business or, you're involved with everyone from an expanded aspect. And then I found myself doing college in the United States, which is very individualist. And so all that allowed me to find nuance, if you will. It
Mhm.
allowed me to figure out which parts of myself to flex, but it also allowed me to determine who I was. And I remember my first crisis of belonging happening when I was around 10. And it was me just being this skinny Nigerian kid with a thick Nigerian accent in that French-speaking country, Burkina Faso, not knowing who I needed to show up as, not knowing which
Mhm.
name I needed to give them because they had laughed at my first name. The teacher had laughed at my first name, not knowing whether I should be the comedian so I could gain attention or be the athlete so I could also gain attention or, figure out how to code switch. And so that definitely was a tough transition for me. I eventually settled with my passions of sports and but an internal angst, internal anxiety, sad depression, and
Yes.
writing all my notes. And then when I came back home to Nigeria, it was like, well, people questioning my Nigerianness, even though that was the only passport is and still is the only passport that I have. And so those common juxtaposition of experiences really allowed me by the time I was 17 to understand that belonging for me is all of my experiences
Mhm.
and what I decide to make it.
That's a very complete answer. Tell us what sport you were excelling in at that time.
Yeah, basketball. Basketball is my my one of my loves. So yeah, it was basketball for me, and I did a little bit of track, but basketball was where I was excelling.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, you and I both, I tried to fit into Cameroon, West Africa at one point, but I grew
You
up in
did?
Scotland, so you can imagine how that went.
Vastly different cultures.
So, why do you think belonging is a topic that is sort of seeping up into everybody's consciousness nowadays? It's something that Megan is an expert on and has written a book on,
Yeah,
and it's something that I'm hearing about more and more because it was a thing that we just used to do, or we
yeah.
just used to do. So, tell us more about why this is happening now and what the sort of the anatomy of it is, please.
Well, right now we have a crisis of community, crisis of identity, crisis of value, crisis of everything. Regardless of where you stand on any spectrum, it is either or. And I think in a world of nuance, we're unfortunately governed by binary systems. So it doesn't allow us to completely see people for who they are or completely understand the systems in which people operate. And so when you don't understand those things, you miss out on intersections. And so some people feel like if they want to gain access to some sort of status uplifter, wealth, community, they have to shed aspects of themselves. And in doing that, people call them out in their community. And in order for them to fit in, they call other people out. And so we have these sides, at loggerheads. And then you put in the social media and the speed of information and the way information goes around and algorithms into place, it then creates echo chambers. And all these echo chambers, unfortunately, have fueled a lot of reactive responses as opposed to reflective moments. And so people are doing what we call rage baiting, right? They're trying to get people to be angry for engagement, by saying ridiculous things. And that's becoming more of the culture as opposed to critical thinking and showing your sources. And so I just think it's this cycle of people wanting to gain attention so they can have engagement, people feeling, spurned by people in the past that have spurned them and using this as an opportunity to go back at them. And then people looking at leaders and seeing that these types of behaviors are rewarded. And so they're like, well, he, she, they are doing it. Why can't I do it? And so it's just that combination of people emphasizing that you are either this or that, and if you're not with this, you're against us. And I think that's where we are right now. And so a lot of people want to belong.
Mm.
It's a hard place to belong when you feel like you don't fit into the supposed two sides that you're supposed to choose from. Because you saying nuance seems more complicated for someone to want to to think or reflect upon.
Yeah, nuance is I talk a lot about lily pad thinking. And so sometimes when we are changing and growing our mindset, it's not like I cross from one side of the pond to the other side of the pond. It's
Mm.
more like I'm a little frog or a toad and I go from one lily pad to the next lily pad.
Yeah.
But we don't seem to have the patience nor the presence
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, and this is obviously internet was obviously around for a lot of my generation, but before it became this, high speed internet, we would have moments where we were in the back seat of the car of our parents just driving for hours, and it would be a book or us just staring at the trees and not
Yes,
being bored. Right. And
yes.
now I look at myself, I'm like, if I can't look at my phone in all these moments, it's tough. But what happened in those moments was you were forced to be present, you were forced to think, you were forced to consume information. And if you got curious, you ask, hey, mom, hey, dad, I'm just reading about this right now. What's happening? And we're not having that or moments like that anymore where you can actually engage with information and then, question, ask, and then do more research. We just have like 30-second news cycles. And so if you feel like you didn't hit with something, you're like, that didn't go well. On to the next thing. And so I think that type of microwave thinking is really hurting us as well.
And that really speaks to the dopamine and, all the receptors in our brains and how we're being trained by an outside force to use our brains.
Yes. And not internal, right? Not enough reflective, it's just reactive. Yeah.
Megan?
Yeah, Tayo, you're really speaking into like the cognitive pieces of how we're approaching what we're receiving and how we're engaging. How do we move more into the affective and then how does that then inform our behavior? How can we move from a head to a heart in our sense of belonging?
I think we need to get back to those question basics, why, how, what. So, you start off with what is happening inside my body now, right? What is happening? I'm angry, I'm feeling nervous, and then why is it happening? And this is gonna need some investigation. You're not gonna find the answer immediately, or you might, but it depends on, who you ask and how much you reflect upon it. And so if you have a situation where someone says a word and you realize that you're triggered, for example, like what's happening? Okay, I'm feeling nervous, I'm shaking, I'm angry. Why? And then, okay, this word for some reason triggers response. I don't like being called this word because it makes me feel small and it makes me feel like this. And then how? It can go multiple ways. It could be how am I going to respond or how am I going to make sure that I'm not in this place where I can't defend myself anymore or how am I going to respond in a way where I feel like I'm changing the course of action so no one can call me that anymore. And once we get back to that basic, you start understanding why people behave the way they behave. Behavior science is basically understanding why people do what they do. And so when I say I'm a behavior scientist, that's because my career path has always been that way. Whether I was the son of a diplomat, I needed to understand different environments to know what it was like for someone, to say, the N word at me is such a young word because that happened to me. And then you're like, whoa. Or for someone, a teacher to laugh at my name when I was 10
Mm,
because she said it was too complicated. And so how do you deal with those type of emotions?
mm,
And I think a lot of us have forgotten that in our environments, people are modeling what they see from their spheres of influence. And so if
mm,
you as a parent and a brother and a sister see a response like that, you internalize that and feel like that's how you should behave. And so you don't get to have that moment of explanation to say, in this moment, what happened was this. It's okay to feel sad, okay to feel angry. And if you feel this way, come to me as a safe space and we'll work with this, right? And so I just think we're losing the basics of the what, how, and why. And we are not understanding how to react and that it's okay to react in a way that might be foreign to us as long as we take in the feedback from that information download. And so yeah, those would be the things, what, how, why. It'll save you from many, many instances. That's what diplomats do a lot of times.
Yeah, I love that you're starting with the sense of awareness and
Yeah,
bringing
yeah,
that into a very tactile way
yeah,
to understand.
yeah. And awareness of your biases too, by the way, because you could also be a perpetrator of this. So I was speaking from the other side, but everyone has a bias, and so a bias influences how you shape the world. And so if you're on the other side of that and someone says that, you have to ask yourself what makes you see a group of people this way, or what makes you see a particular or interpret a particular situation differently. And in order to reflect, it's, ask yourself those questions. Who are your people in your friend group? What do you expose yourself to? And then where do you think the source of you seeing someone like that could come from? And if you find yourself saying, I don't know, it's just what I've always known, that's not enough information because you just picked up something without actually believing it and it was just downloaded into you. And so
mm.
those are that's the formula, the pathway for you to be able to get that, understanding your biases, understanding your triggers, and then the other step will be understanding your values, which would be what do I believe in? I know what my biases are. I know what triggers me. Now, what are the five values that guide me towards the best person I want to be? And am I living in tandem with those values or am I going against those values? If so, what's the disconnect?
Mm.
Yeah.
I love that. I get very frustrated with my generation
Oh, why?
because have you read the book Rethinking by Adam Grant?
I love Adam Grant. Yeah, I'm a big Adam Grant proponent.
I'm
Yeah,
a
I
big
listen to all the
Adam
stuff.
Grant fan too, but he wrote the book Rethinking,
Yeah.
and he challenges us in there to rethink everything, to take it all the way back to the basics. And I know over the course, I've been overseas for 50 years now, this year. I just
Oh,
realized that this
wow.
weekend. And so
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it takes me a little while to wake up to these things. So I've had all sorts of, when you come to our generation that has lived overseas and we did belonging differently because we didn't have the internet. I have to lay a lot of the responsibility because of the modeling that we're seeing on the internet. Would you agree
Yeah.
with that? And I feel like my generation, sometimes we get stuck and we don't
Hmm.
examine our biases.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I know that when I walk into a room, as a gringo in Mexico, white hair, US accent, I can, they don't know the difference between me and a Scottish girl from Glasgow because I don't present with a kilt on every day. It's not. it's just that I need to be conscious of what the baggage that I am responsible for.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an important aspect. It's possible to be simultaneously aware of, say, privileges you have and also marginalizations you might have, right? So I could be in a room. I live in New York, right? So I could understand that maybe past 9 p.m. in some areas, I am safer than a woman walking there.
Yes.
But then
Yeah,
I could also understand that depending on where I am in some airports, I could feel some sense of dread, right?
yes,
Those things we're talking about lack of binary, moving away from binary thinking, those things can
exactly.
happen. So then having that awareness then means, okay, you're aware of the environments. If you're with your girlfriend, your daughter, anyone, okay, look, if someone is going around this time, you got to make sure that it's as safe as you can. You can be for that person. And on the other side, if you have the privilege, you have to make sure that, hey, look, I know that sometimes there's this bias towards you, so I'm gonna, extend my privilege here to help and make sure it's easier. And I think we've lost a lot of that, and that just strips away from community. And
Yeah.
sometimes now I feel like if people admit that they have a certain privilege, they see it as a weakness. And not as a pathway to connection, which is
Mm,
which are two diametrically opposite views. Because if you look at it from a sense of weakness, you're just gonna try and double down on something that feels, makes you strong. But if you look at it as a sense of connection, you get to put yourself in a position where you're open to feedback, you're open to learning, you're understanding ways you can fix certain systemic issues. So that's
yes.
just where we are. Yeah.
Wow. And so if we recognize our biases,
Mhm.
um, how does that improve inclusivity and how does that build belonging, please?
Well, when you recognize your bias, you understand what the barriers are to inclusion, what the barriers to inclusion are rather, because then you're able to see how one, you participate in it, or two, you can help dismantle it. It could be something as simple as your parents, by the way. I was I was talking to my you know, uh girlfriend the other day and we were talking about how some families will disown you if you marry someone from what they call the wrong tribe. And so you have an opportunity there. And it's a tough one because it's a choice to decide if you want to perpetuate a certain thing or
Yeah.
choose a different path for you. Now, obviously, there's a loss, right? You could lose a whole family in and then gain a new family because it's what you want to do, or you could do the other way. Now I don't want to say there's a right or wrong way to do that, but there is an opportunity missed in any way. But then the best case scenario could be we don't want to lose our daughter or we don't want to lose our son, so we need to figure out why we are choosing some sort of tradition over making sure our kids are happy. And those are opportunities there in terms of recognizing your bias. If a family doesn't recognize the bias, you lose the family. If you recognize your bias, you gain a new family, and then it's an opportunity to learn. So yeah, that's why I think it's important. It's always a learning opportunity because you're gaining a whole set of worldviews. You're seeing how multiple things can arrive at similar solutions. Multiple people can eat a certain way and still laugh. They can talk a certain way and still laugh, right? And those are the opportunities you just miss out upon.
Yeah. Have
Yeah,
you ever seen them? I'm
yeah.
sorry,
Oh,
go ahead,
Oh,
Megan.
Doreen.
Oh, well, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Paradise Found, I think it's called, and it has Julia Roberts and George Clooney in it. I just watched it yesterday, and
I know
they,
what you're talking about.
have you
I didn't
seen
watch
that?
it, but I know what you're talking about. I saw the
Yeah.
trailer. Is it good?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, you say, yeah, yeah.
It's a sort of romantic rom-com. I think it's
I
made
like
for like,
rom-coms.
there you go.
Yeah.
So I loved it because we don't want to tell the secrets for the listeners who haven't watched this movie yet, but we'll put it in the show notes as a recommendation and a resource. How about that, Megan?
Sounds good. Yeah.
Oh, Megan, I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I love the conversation about how it's an opportunity where we don't have to shut down and retreat, perhaps if there's conflict. And
Yeah.
and difference, or because that ambiguity can be scary sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, I'm wondering your thoughts on authenticity then. Then how do you feel authentic to your identity, authentic to who you are, your own cultural context, your sense of belonging and family, maybe community, and then the broader even nation state?
Well, I learned a long time ago that if I don't believe I'm authentic, then I'm going to be chasing a lost cause. Because for a lot of my early formative years, it was always listening to feedback and trying to just put myself in a box. I'm talking about everything is something as simple as watching TV shows and trying to mimic the cadence, the accent of whoever the popular actor was, all that is, and that can be mentally draining, because I'm searching for authenticity in that environment. And so it then becomes what is important to me and who do I want to show up as? And everybody's got to have a moment where they ask themselves that question. Who do you want to show up as? Right? You start from there. And then once you start asking those questions, like, okay, so I want to show up as someone who is joyful, who embraces life, who likes sports. Okay, what are the barriers? Well, my classmates, my parents, my friend group. And then you have to ask yourself this question. How am I going to be unapologetic about this? And so it would be if someone makes fun of something, hey, no, my name is Tayo. I would appreciate if you call me Tayo. Don't call me Roxon, which is what I did initially in middle school. So just call me Roxon because people kept mispronouncing it. And then once I got there when I was 17, I said, no, my name's Tayo. Just it's Tayo. Can I call
Yes.
you? No, it's Tayo. All right. So those moments where you know, double down on something that's important to you, you start being more authentic and people realize, oh, yeah, don't mispronounce his name. Or even if you mispronounce his name, he appreciates the effort. So then you go there. And then it would be if someone says a joke that you don't find funny, you say, well, look, I love you, but those type of jokes are not fun or funny for me. I really want us to do that. Or you could even take the soft approach. I know you didn't mean that, so let me just tell you what happens in me when you say that, which then allows that. And so as you continue to do that, you allow yourselves to be authentic, but you wouldn't have gotten there if you didn't ask yourself who you want to show up as. And that's something that I think we need to teach our kids, but also teach our friends, right? I have a mantra that I always say, I don't believe in superficial friends. And, just the hi, how are you doing? Fine, goodbye. I think it's important for you to know the values of your friends as well as for them to know your values. And so when you're ingratiating someone into your community or your circle of influence, hey, these are the things that are important to me. I want you to know so you can show up for me. And then what are the things that are important to you so I can show up for you? And that way you also have an accountability partner when they feel like you're straying away from your own version of authenticity because they can call you in that. And so it goes all those ways. But it all starts with understanding who you want to be and who you want to show up as and what's important to you.
Is that difficult for people?
Yes, because we have forgotten that growth comes from discomfort. A lot of us don't like being uncomfortable. All three of us here were put in positions where we had to be uncomfortable, whether we wanted to or not. And we might not have liked it in those moments, but in retrospect, as you're looking back, you realize we grew, right? You say, oh yeah, we pronounced something wrong. We didn't know how to say the language and all those things, but because of that, it made us, hyper aware of certain things, certain sensitivities. But even if you drill it down to an athlete, to anyone who's a musician, there are moments where the musician's not hitting the note, the moments where the tones are not where they need to be, but they keep at it and they deal with the fact that they're an amateur, and then after months of practice, they get to a certain level. With an athlete, you're shooting your shots constantly, and then you find a rhythm. That's just the music of life, too, though. You
Mm.
get better the moment you put yourself in positions where you have to grow, and that discomfort is something we have to, continue to embrace, right? I don't want us to act like failure isn't a part of life. But I think a lot of us see that as weakness. And so, yes, it's difficult to do, but it's also necessary. And it's always been necessary in the history of the world.
And it's messy and tangled and complex and
Yeah.
it sucks. But
Yeah. Can you
I,
imagine if someone didn't tell, so if remember when women couldn't vote? or when black people are seen as
I'm
three-fifths
not that
of a man,
old.
and you say, hey, I'm a little uncomfortable telling you that I think you're wrong, but I'm just gonna keep it myself. Or when people did believe that women could own a business, right? These are some things that we can laugh at now. Someone has
Yes.
to say something like, I don't know if this is
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the right thing to do here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So you have to do that in order to change the world for the better.
Well, we have a wonderful opportunity nowadays to be very uncomfortable and to speak up.
This is true. This is true. This is true. I agree. And we have to take that opportunity. Oh, you two are doing it right now because you're bringing on people with different worldviews. And I'm sure I don't know if you had this here, but I know when I've interviewed people, there's some people I've disagreed with, but we've engaged in the dialogue. I'd be like, I don't know. You help me understand what you're saying because this is kind of how I see it. And even if
Yes.
we don't end up agreeing, I'm like, the audience is gonna be split.
Yes.
here, but I appreciate that you gave your opportunity here. But this is, my opportunity here. So,
Mm,
yeah.
It's an opportunity to practice adaptability too, isn't it?
Oh, well said. Yes, that's true. I agree.
Sometimes I listen to podcasts on 1.5 speed or 2.0 speed just to, get going on what the points are. And I feel
I'm
like I
with you.
cannot with you, I feel like it's 2.0 speed anyways. What do I pause on what you're saying and rewind and listen to it? It's packed full of wisdom. And I love your motto, use your difference to make a difference.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
that motto speaks into the calling and the invitation to invite people to look at difference.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's also important to start at a place of sometimes similarity, because if you start at a place of
Mm,
difference, like Ruth
mm.
Van Rieken says, that's sometimes all you can see. And
Mhm.
so how would you approach that in terms of like inclusivity and
Yeah.
difference?
I always love the fact that there's no thumbprint that's the same. And so I would tell anyone that. And then I'm saying, what makes you different is what makes you special. And so oftentimes, if someone is really struggling because they have a different worldview from me, I'll just say, hey, look, just look throughout history. If we never collaborated together on anything that was different, we wouldn't be here where we are. And so tell me what are the things that make you you, and I'll tell you what are the things that make me me. And like, oh yeah, I like sports. I like this. Oh, so we both like sports, but I grew up here in this. Oh yeah, yeah, but my sport is different from your sport. Okay, I like this sport because it's a big part of my culture. And in Nigeria, football is something that brings us together. Well, we have our version of football, right? And for us, we go to the bar every Sunday or Monday or Thursday, and it gets us there. And then I'm saying, do you see how your difference is different there in that way? But then the other aspect is just this concept of creativity and growth. And I'm always asking people if they want to stay stagnant or they want to grow. And if what was true yesterday is true today. And what was true for many people yesterday is not the same today. And it only came about because we changed our relationship to difference. So there's so many, we've you know, touched on a few things, whether it has to do with socioeconomic factors. We don't do business the way we used to do business. We don't write messages the way we used to write messages. And in order for us to advance, we need to be able to, ease our stance and use your difference to make a difference is not a deviation from your value. You can still preserve values that you have if that's what you're worried about, but you can increase in appreciation for the big world that we have that is simultaneously small. And we can understand why a lot of people feel left out because we have a new lens to look at the world. And so it's a call to action. It's a it's a motto, but I feel like everybody believes it deep down though. That's just what I've always thought. If you're a parent, you're always championing the individuality of your kid, or at least for the most part. The kid walked. My kid says this is my first He says his first word. I'm so excited. Oh, he picked the apple with his left hand. You're not gonna say pick the apple with your right hand. You're like, oh no, I'm just glad you picked up the apple. But you're you're embracing all those tiny, tiny moments. And then when we get to a certain age, we start saying assimilate, 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 and then we lose the essence of who
Mm.
we are. And so I just think use your difference to make a difference is truly you using the gift that you have as an individual with a different thumbprint to make an impact on the world that you were already born into. And I
Mm.
think everybody's life is meant to make the world better than it was when they came into it. So, yeah, that's what I would say to someone who's struggling with the concept of using difference to make a difference.
Yes, yeah. I like to refer to that as you are a walking, unrepeatable miracle.
Ah, that's good.
Everybody is.
Yeah, well, miracles.
And
Well, works of art.
if we all looked at each other as a walking miracle, think how different the world would be, you know?
Yeah. More
Because we
appreciation.
are, miracles are usually positive. So I think there's that aspect to it.
Yeah, the path to us even coming into the world, whether you look at it from a scientific or religious perspective,
Right.
is a miracle, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, the odds are right there. So yeah.
Yeah. And
Mm.
and it is so much more challenging. I mean, I feel like I feel like the barriers to being human are mounting.
Oh yeah. We've
And
forgotten what it is to be human, though.
exactly, but we're forgetting because we're getting these barriers put up, whether they're on tech or whether they're just our isolationist way of living and being. But it feels to me that I keep feeling like the barriers to seeing over the wall or hanging out with people and spending time with people are just getting raised every day. And I always feel like I'm like a little animal who's trying to just dig underneath that wall because
Yeah.
it takes energy. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah, yeah, because you're facing a lot of resistance as well. Someone could say you're kumbaya, you're to this, you're that, or you're not dealing in reality. And you could say back to them that the reality is that we're not getting back to our roots, or we're not being the best versions of ourselves. And so and I always hate those sayings, the nice guy finishes last, or all the anything that champions you know, evil or hardcore, as opposed to just finding a nuance again. It's just like we don't make those things popular. And if we did, I think we'll remember the humanity. That's why I like slice of life movies. Or I don't know if you ever watched This Is Us. There's a
Uh-huh.
show.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, you have? Okay, okay. But I like shows like that randomly because they just show you
Yeah.
aspect of life, just people living their everyday lives, and you're like, oh, I have an uncle. Oh, that's my mom, or that's my this, and you're just like, wow, it doesn't cost much to just care or to try and see this, or you find yourself being the bully, right? And you're like, oh, that's what I look like. I need to change that.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
It's
I have a
it's difficult.
sticker.
You
Oh,
have a stick,
go ahead.
sir?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to mention I have a sticker on my laptop. I have a bunch of stickers on them on the laptop cover, and one says "Humankind, be both."
Mm, mm.
Both of you are just dropping a lot of knowledge here, a lot of nuggets.
Look at us.
Humankind be both.
You have another question for Tayo, Megan?
So many, but Kyle, how are you using your difference to make a difference?
Whew. I've been reflecting on this a lot, especially since the pandemic hit. I feel like we haven't even fully realized how it fundamentally changed a lot of us. I think we're
Mm.
still seeing the effects of that in many ways, psychologically. I mean, definitely politically, mentally, all the leads. And for me, I've been really focusing on community and figuring out how to get people to communicate. If those two C's, just
Mm,
understanding divisions, understanding why people can't deal with conflict, and then figuring out how people can communicate across ideas, across barriers, and get back to sharing ideas in a way that is communal. I haven't quite figured it out, but it's been something that's been occupying my thought because every time I look at the TV or my my social media feed, I feel like I see opportunities for growth, but people aren't seeing it. And I don't know if it's me seeing it through a narrow lens, but I just feel like a better way would be if we could talk through those things and be open to being, you know, to being wrong and then have the patience to be able to commune with each other. So, yeah, I guess community and communication, those are the things I'm focusing on.
I think that's great. And do you think that messiness comes into this as well? That we all want to look perfect, we want to be perfect. I mean, my life has been, my journey through the last 50 years has been a mess. And
Same.
but now I see it as the most beautiful, harmonious mess and entanglement of experiences that one could ever have. And so I think that we're not encouraged to be uncomfortable. We're
Yeah.
not we're not encouraged to challenge each other about, communicating better. We're not encouraged to reveal our messiness. And
Yeah,
until we do, we're cloaking our humanity.
we are. Under
And
the
I don't,
guise of, oh, sorry,
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking about the invisibility cloak in Harry Potter. I don't know if you're a
Right.
Harry Potter. We're a
Yeah.
Harry Potter household here. And in Harry Potter, they have the invisibility cloak. And I think that that's partly what's happening. We're not feeling and getting a sensation of each other's wholeness and each other's global heartedness because we're not in a position to be revealing that messiness.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think a lot of us have, I think perfection can be a system of oppression. I just think as we chase for perfection, a lot of what you gets lost is the messiness, as you're saying, and we're just silently oppressing ourselves and we're suppressing ourselves because we're not allowing ourselves to really just reach what our goalpost is. Instead, it's just like this moving goalpost that is forever out of reach. And it is very hard to teach. It doesn't allow us to appreciate our progress or the process. It's just always that end goal. And then it allows us to be unkind to ourselves, which in turn makes us unkind to others. And so we're just constantly seeing people through that lens. And so we're just oppressing ourselves like that and also the world in that way.
I think that's a great quotation. I would say this is probably one of the best resources is perfection is a system of suppression. And you heard it here on Nomadic
Yes.
Series.
Yes.
Yes, by Tayo Rockson.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's something I definitely believe. And so I always say that. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Uh,
how about when you're dealing with leaders and training leaders and working with leaders? How would you recommend is there one gold nugget that you think is really something that leaders can do to influence their teams around the globe?
don't be afraid to be human. You will not believe the amount of executives that I come across who feel like them highlighting mistakes that they've made is a sign of weakness. I mean, you could be any executive, right? Oh, we didn't meet our target last quarter. I don't want to say this because I feel like it will reduce the morale. And I'm like, no, if you say this, you're going to make them understand that even you don't get to the level, and you're understanding that there is a process, and it's okay for me to talk to my manager and feel understood because they know that I'm doing the work and they appreciate the process and they're going to give me some leeway, or even admitting that you need a personal day off, because everybody deals with different sets of challenges, right? And so you say, hey, I'm sorry, I was not, I just needed to take a personal day off. It was overwhelming. Then you get people doing that and they're able to show up as more human. And so I always tell leaders to embrace mistakes. And I think that's been the theme of this podcast, actually, because you've been saying similar things as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
the
Very helpful.
messiness, and yeah, it takes the courage to lean into the messiness.
I agree. Well said. Well said.
So, as we start to conclude this episode, we have a little thing that we do here, and it's called our lightning round. Megan, would you
Mm.
like to go ahead with the first question in the lightning round?
Yeah. I'm curious, Tayo, what would you say are some synonyms for belonging?
Whoa, synonyms for belonging. Um, safety. Um, hmm, home,
Mm. Mm.
bah, appreciation. No, appreciation seems a little too tame. Um, understanding. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Maybe
Yeah.
appreciation. I might bring appreciation back because you appreciate um
Mm.
nuance. Yeah,
Yeah.
That's great.
yeah.
I have one for you. If you could learn a language that you currently do not speak, and you could learn it in a day and be fluent, which language would you choose?
Yeah. It would be uh, what language would it be? I already know Spanish, French, English. Yeah, it would probably be one tribal language from Nigeria. So I would say Igbo. That's
Igbo.
another that's another language in Nigeria.
Yes.
Yeah,
Excellent.
yeah.
Excellent. Megan?
And if you could teleport to any country right now for 24 hours, where would you go?
Singapore.
Have you been before?
No, but I always wanted to go. So it was top of mind. Um, yeah, yeah.
No.
Excellent. So we're going to imagine you speaking Igbo in Singapore.
Oh, oh, wow. Yeah, yeah. That'll be fun. So
Hey,
I'm from the Yoruba tribe, and so a lot of times there's the silent competition. So that would actually be a great inclusion, exercise where, people are speaking different languages from the same country and going abroad as well. So
yes,
yeah, that's
yes,
good.
yes.
Beautiful.
Well, thank you for this. Tell us about your book and then tell us about your podcast.
So my book is called Use Your Difference to Make a Difference. It's, basically what we talked about today. And it's for anyone, it could be someone that is reading it for personal development or a teacher or, someone in a company. And it breaks down different ways you can use your difference to make a difference from the education aspect, education of yourself, education of others, making sure you're not perpetuating it in the systems that you participate in. And then the last part of the book is about how you communicate through conflict, through difficulty, and how you communicate an idea once you've done the hard work of the self-awareness. And so, yeah, you can buy it anywhere books are sold. So use your difference to make a difference. I have taken a break from the podcast because I've been prioritizing my mental health. I did it for almost 10 years, and I was like,
Oh
I
my.
need a break.
Yes, you
But
did. 10
but the
years is a
podcast is
long
called As Told
time.
by Nomads if you want to watch. But I felt like it was important to say that because we're talking about being vulnerable and honest, but yeah, is something that I did from 2014 till last year. I am not sure if I'll go back to it yet, but there are over 700 episodes that you can listen to.
You
So,
are another Tim Ferriss.
oh, Tim Ferriss. That is high praise. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Ma-
you.
Well, congratulations, congratulations. And where would you like our listening audience is intent on finding out where to find you? Where can we find you?
Tayo Rockson everywhere. So TayoRockson. So TayoRockson.com, Tayo Rockson on any social media platform. And yeah, you'll find me anywhere and everywhere.
Thank you, Tayo, for your time, for sharing your wisdom. You're so articulate, and appreciate you coming on to this mini series of Nomadic Diaries.
Listeners, please, we would really appreciate it if you would review and connect with us somewhere on the sphere. And it's been a pleasure, Tayo. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. Thank you.
I'm just going to close by saying real belonging does not require that we change. It requires that we decide to be who we are.
Mic drop.
Bars. Well done.